This is the Chalk Dinosaur podcast, episode number 2. It's Monday, October 7th, right? Is it the 7th? Yes. And so I've been doing this little experiment for a week now. And in this experiment, I've made 7 daily things that I want to do, 7 criteria that I've picked because, I've done all these things independently and they've made my life better. And I wanted to put them all together for a consistent period of time, a whole month, and see what that could do for me. And I'm, documenting it through this podcast, which is kind of like a little journal that I could go back to later, 10 years down the road and listen to and say, oh, I remember that, but I don't remember, I didn't remember that quite like I do when I listen to it and I hear exactly what I was thinking. Anyway, the 7 things I was doing were waking up at 4:30 every day, meditating for 15 minutes a day, exercising for 1 hour a day, I'm drinking a gallon of water a day, I'm not drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, or doing any recreational drugs. I'm writing down a task list for the next day. I'm doing that before I go to bed. And what is that? Is that 7 things? Exercise, wake up, meditate. Oh yeah, 3 pages of journaling a day. I think that's it. There's 7 things. And after a week, here's an update. It's been great so far. I really like it. I thought it was going to be a little bit more of a drag getting up at 4:30 every day and doing this stuff, but I think for probably the 6 months leading up to my decision to do this, I'd let my lifestyle kind of dissolve so much that I was really ready to get back to prioritizing a good lifestyle. So, over the 6 months prior, we played a lot of shows and festivals, and I was traveling a lot and going on vacations, and it was great. It was really great. But I, was drinking a lot. I was smoking cigarettes. My sleeping schedule was very inconsistent. So I really, really just wanted to have a consistent month, a complete month of good stuff. I just wanted some consistency because, I've always been curious, what would it be like if I just kept my good habits going through the weekend? Because a lot of times during the week, I'll have a solid week, and then on the weekend, it kind of all just goes out the window, and I end up staying up late and drinking, and then I sleep in, and then I'm just unfocused and ultimately unfulfilled. So that's why I'm doing this. And after a week, it's been really great. Couple of surprises. One is the amount of energy that I have. I thought it might take a little while to adjust to waking up at 4:30, but I've been very good about going to bed no later than 10. So usually I'm trying to be asleep by 9:30, and waking up at 4:30, I've been surprised that I have energy all throughout the day, all the way until I go to bed. I have to kind of make myself go to bed because I could stay up later, but then I've found when I do want to go to sleep, I'm asleep within 10 minutes probably, really fast, and I sleep through the night. And I missed one day waking up at 4:30, and what happened was I woke up before my alarm went off. I turned my alarm off, assuming that I was going to get out of bed, and then I accidentally fell back asleep. And then my alarm didn't go off because I turned it off. So that was all right, as long as I didn't completely allow myself to, go off the rails. So I stayed on track for that day, did everything I was supposed to do, and then I made sure that it didn't happen again the next day. And I set 2 alarms on my phone and then one on my radio alarm clock, which is what I usually use. And yeah, so a lot of energy, which was surprising. Sleeping really well. And yeah, I don't know, it's kind of hard for me to believe that have been waking up that early because I'm typically a very night owl type person, and historically have done most of my working and stuff. I'll be up at 4:30, but it's because I have been up all night. And then I sleep, really late, and I just didn't like that. I started to not like that because it just made my rhythm so inconsistent, and I want a consistent rhythm, consistent output over time. Trying to manufacture offense here, as they say in the game of football. Trying to manufacture some offense, and it's working so far. I'm excited to see how it'll go as I continue to compound these solid days. Yeah, the exercising, as I expected, I was extremely sore after the first day. And I was aware that I was probably going to get really sore because I, hadn't been working out for a while. So I was even trying to take it easy and still was just extremely sore. But, this is why I left the 1 hour of exercise criteria very general because, in previous times trying to implement like a routine, I'll make something really specific and try to follow it to a T, but I'll get derailed by something like either just like really sore or have feel like I have like some kind of injury or something. Like for some reason I'll like get off that plan a little bit, or like there'll be like too many people using the thing I want to use, so I won't be able to do it, and then like it'll throw me off, and then I'll end up just like the whole thing will just dissolve. So I kept it really general because I'm just an hour of exercise, and it could be weightlifting, it could be running, it could be stretching, it could be walking, it could be anything. Just the important part is that I show up to wherever the place of exercise is, and I just be there for an hour and do something, whatever. And I made it this way because I know from prior experience that if I show up, the natural inclination is to push myself. So right now on some of the days I was kind of just going through the motions and just trying to be doing something for an hour. And I know that as I get in better shape and as my strength and conditioning increases, my desire to push myself is going to increase. I'm just trying to build the habit right now of being active for an hour. And a lot of this comes from, recently I've heard this guy, James Clear, who released a book recently called Atomic Habits. I haven't read the book yet, but I've heard him as a guest on a bunch of podcasts, and he like was talking about a lot of the concepts that he wrote about in his book that were really resonated with me and made sense to me. So I definitely want to read his book. But one of the things he talks a lot about is, focusing on the systems and not on the goals. And that just made a lot of sense to me. I can't explain it as well as he can, but basically, I'm not worried about numbers. I'm not worried about certain end point. I've thought of, where ultimately I'd like to be, and that's like a way to set trajectory, and then you just focus on what the daily things are that align with that trajectory. So working out, being active for an hour a day, That's all I'm focused on. And it's actually made exercising a lot more enjoyable because I don't have this expectation of like what I need to do, how much I should be doing. Like if I'm like not feeling good that day and like not having a great workout, that's fine. As long as I'm there for an hour, that's all that matters. So we'll see how that goes. That's like my philosophy going into it this time. And it's the same thing with the meditation and the writing, the journaling. Similar to the exercise, the meditation, over the last 6 months, I've kind of like fallen out of that habit. And whenever you start doing it again, it's pretty difficult. It's pretty difficult to focus and just be sitting still and like not engaging your thoughts for 30 seconds is really hard. So, these meditation sessions, they haven't been that good. But it is a practice and you get better at it the more you do it, especially if you're doing it consistently. So, I've been through this progression and I do know that it gets easier. So I'm not worrying about it. I'm just sitting there for 15 minutes, doing my best and not worrying about not getting frustrated, if I don't feel like I'm doing it well. And the journaling is the same way. And that's the way the journal should be. You shouldn't be, well, in my journaling, like, approach, definitely not worrying about making it good, not trying to come up with any profound insights or anything, just writing, getting things off my mind. And through time and consistency, you start to get more and more interesting and insightful things out of your mind and make a lot more observations. So yeah, establishing the habit, just trying to focus on the system. And the system's been great so far. Waking up early, I have much less of an urge to rush, which is nice. Like I can take my time. When I don't wake up early, I'm like, I don't have time to meditate or to exercise or to journal. Like, I'll just like do that stuff at the end of the day, and then I end up, not doing it. That's just what happens. So, prioritizing the time to allow myself to like do these things and not be rushing and kind of doing it as an afterthought, instead prioritizing these healthier, more positively beneficial lifestyle things. Prioritizing that is something I've been wanting to do for, since the last time I had a good run of good living. But whenever life gets crazy, all the good practices that aren't, work related just get pushed out of the way, and it ends up, I end up shooting myself in the foot with that, because then I'm just, a lot more scatterbrained, less energy, feel less good about stuff. I'm just focused on getting the stuff done I have to get done. And I think a big part of being able to allow myself to, focus on the lifestyle things that aren't work related, like meditating, journaling, exercising, which are the three most helpful things that I've discovered. You just have to, well, for me, I just had to make the time for it. And where do you get the time for it? I'm cutting it out from the night, because so usually at 9 o'clock, 9:30, the times when I want to just like stay up later and later, what I'm doing at that hour is usually watching TV and eating snacks. And so I have to cut myself off so I can be asleep by 9:30. I'm not doing anything productive. I'm not really doing anything social. I'm just sitting, watching TV and eating, or sitting, eating, and like reading articles, not intentionally reading articles to get specific information, but just reading, just, consuming content, like trying to just jam stuff into my brain so it doesn't, because it feels good not to be using it for some reason, some kind of instant gratification thing. But anyway, yeah. So I'm not doing anything useful. So by cutting off that could go on, when it's 9:30 and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go to bed now instead of continuing to watch TV and eat snacks. If before I started this little experiment, I could be doing that, watching TV and eating snacks for many hours after 9:30, and I would get trapped in that. And even just like, I'm well aware, like, I should go to bed. This is like, I'm wasting time right now. This is like well beyond the point of relaxing. But for some reason, I just got stuck in the loop. So it feels good it feels affirming to have like cut out that wasted time, which, easily 2 hours could be wasted. And instead moving that to the morning, waking up after a full night of rest and being able to actually be productive and have energy and stuff to do something that's going to be more fulfilling to me, which is, working on music, working on anything creative. I mean, I've got so much stuff that I'm trying to do, and it can feel overwhelming, like I don't have enough time to do it all. But this has been a big help, just cutting out a lot of the unnecessary, unuseful, time-consuming media and snacks. Hey, I love doing that as much as the next guy or girl, but I also realize the effects of that. So, this week I was pretty excited. I've been, learning graphic design stuff is something I've been thinking about more and more and wanting to become proficient in more and more. Like, if I could be as comfortable with Illustrator and Photoshop, if I could be as comfortable with that as I am with Logic, which is what I record music in, that would be amazing, because there's so many instances where I need graphic design. And being that I really don't make any money from Chalk Dinosaur, a lot of times I'm trying to be cheap, I guess, to put it one way. Like, there are certain instances where I'll spend money to do stuff like get music mastered for certain albums, or like anything like that. But I'm pretty pumped. Well, I've dabbled in graphic design before, and it's just like with music. Like, it's a struggle in the beginning to try and make something that comes off as like professional and not amateur. And like, I don't know if I've gotten past that point yet, and I'm kind of using Chalk Dinosaur as my kind of guinea pig like outlet to give me a reason to learn that stuff. And I feel like I made some very good strides in this last week, actively seeking out tutorials and getting into some of the more advanced and deeper features of Illustrator, things that right off the bat, once I kind of learned how to do these things, kind of made a big difference to my eye, at least, which is, not the same as somebody who is a true professional at this. But anyway, I'm excited about what I came up with for this next album, because I'm closing in finally. This is the light. I see the light at the end of the tunnel for this next album, which is going to be, it's like a compilation album of all these beats and electronic compositions that I've been amassing over the last year, maybe. Some of these are ideas that have been kind of in the works for more than that. I think the oldest one The oldest ones, uh, maybe like from 4 years ago, and just got around to finishing it and releasing is coming up. But yeah, some of them have just been sitting around, and I just was trying to put all these things together to get them finished and released, so they're not just sitting there, so people can listen to them. Because otherwise, they're just gonna sit there and like, what's the point there, you know? And they're things that I like, and they're not. I mean, they're not like masterpieces or anything, but I like them. I get enjoyment out of listening to them, and I want to release them so other people can listen to them too. And also, the creative, like constipation, for lack of a better word. I hate that feeling where I am sitting on all this music that I need to finish that is like 90% done, and I want to finish it and move on. I don't want to just move on and can it all because I like it. But yeah, I want to get things flowing. So right now I'm looking at 17 tracks. It'll be a 17-track album. And I was considering, should I split it up into two albums and stagger the release so I kind of can provide a more consistent flow of new music? And kind of release one half of it, split them up into two albums. Because honestly, 17 tracks, that's a lot for a listener to absorb. I could imagine it could take a long time to get through that, and a lot of these songs will be looked over probably because of the length of it, until somebody has a long drive or something and can listen to the whole thing. But I keep coming back to, no, I just want to like get these out the door, because I have another album behind this one that is about 80% done. And that album's going to be a song-based album. So these are songs with words, very vocally and lyrically oriented. Some of them are electronic, some of them are more acoustic-y. Not acoustic, but like, band instrumentation, like rock instrumentation. Or acoustic, yes, one of them's acoustic, but it'll be less songs for sure. But I want to finish this and start working on that. But I guess if I split it up, it would still be done either way, and I could buy me a little more time to tinker with the song album. Anyway, that's for me to decide, I guess. But I kind of just want to put out a giant blob and move on. And and then after the song album, I've begun working on a Chalk Dinosaur and Friends 2, which, if you're not familiar, I released an album called Chalk Dinosaur and Friends, and that was an album that featured a different Pittsburgh player on each track. And these were players that I came to know through a festival called Farm Jam-A-Lama. And the first year I went, it was like a mind-blowing experience, because I didn't know any of this. I didn't know anything about this scene of music, of all these bands and really, really talented musicians. And so my mind was blown, and there were some musicians that really stood out to me, or, stuck in my memory. And those are the ones that I contacted to be on this album. So I love that album, and I want to do another one, because I just like that kind of common thread, that kind of community, Pittsburgh get-together, McDonald's, chicken nuggets, introducing Beyond Burger, Impossible Meats, etc. Okay, I don't know what just happened there. Anyway, I want to do another Chalk Dinosaur and Friends album featuring, some of the same players, but also some different players that weren't on the last one. Because there's only so much time in a day, I want to work with so many other people, but it just takes time, So, in addition to that, let's talk about the band. So over the past probably 2 years, we've been slowly incorporating more and more full band shows. The band, or Chalk Dinosaur Live, these days exists primarily as a 4-piece live band now, involving my brother Nick on drums, who has been playing with me forever. I mean, going all the way back to Chalk Dinosaur 1.0, back 2009, 2010, before he was even going through puberty. He was playing drums with me, and Andrew Belcastro on the bass, who he grew up across the street from us. I've known him since he was in diapers. Nick and him have been friends probably since before their brains could even form memories. So they go way back. We all go way back. And John, who we just met a couple years ago, and had an instant connection with, one of those people that he came over to jam, and he just randomly hit me up, and we set up a jam session, and it was one of those times where it's just instant friends and connecting on all levels. So that's been great. He's been slowly doing more and more shows until probably a year. Let's see, what was a year ago? A year ago was the first farm jam that John played with us, I think, and that kind of kicked off. Ever since then, we've been doing mostly all full band shows. Anyway, I'm getting way off track here. So, in addition to all these albums that I'm working on, aside from the full band, now that our like playing season is over, that went from April until this last festival at the end of September, we've got some time with no shows. It's time to get started putting together ideas for our next full band album. And we do have some ideas going that have kind of come out of practice, just in between practicing songs we jam, and we've got plenty of ideas. We just need to focus them. We just need to arrange them, which is the less fun and more challenging part. But I want to try and do a different approach this time. So last album, all of those song ideas came from jam sessions that we recorded. Well, almost all of them. So we'd jam for a couple hours and record it, and then we'd all listen to it, and we'd identify the parts that were cool. Like, ooh, that could be a song, or that could be something. And then we had to kind of try and figure out how to put it together into a song. And it was really hard because with the jams, they're morphing so slowly as the jam goes on. It's not like we just start playing an awesome part. It evolves slowly into that part, and then we're doing that for a little bit, and then it morphs, and then it goes in all these places, and trying to figure out how to bottle that up, it was really challenging. And so for a lot of them, I would listen to the jam, I'd isolate the parts that were cool, and then I individually would kind of make a scratch track in my recording software. So I would just do the basic melodies, or I would try to arrange it into a structure that made sense, and then I sent it to the guys, and they would comment on it, and we would just that's how usually the way it was structured out that's pretty much the way we ended up recording it. But then we did it piece by piece. So once we had the scratch track set up with just the basic structure, just the roadmap of where the song was going to go and how long each section was going to go for, then we did all the drums. Nick laid down the drums, and then and then we just layered everything else piece by piece. And so that's the method that I use when I record by myself a lot, obviously, because that's how it has to be. And the challenge with recording a band like that is, there would be these magical moments in our jam sessions. It would be like, oh, that part was awesome. But then it becomes very difficult to get back to that place when you're not all playing together. So trying to do it piece by piece was difficult to get it to sound, to capture that same like energy as when we're playing it. And especially when we played it, the first couple times, when the energy was like, when we were all excited about what was happening. Not that we weren't when we were recording, but it's a lot different, when you're in a studio recording to a pre-recorded drum track instead of playing in a, with everybody in the room, and it's much louder and you can feel the drums and the bass and everything. It's just different. So anyway, that was a long little thing there. I could talk about this forever. So we're going to try this next one. Well, what I want to try is do all the arranging and structuring together in our practice room or just together in a room, figure out the structure of the songs and write them more together, and practice them so we can record all of the rhythm parts live. By rhythm parts, I mean drums, bass, and rhythm guitar. So everything except for guitar solos would be great to record that live. We could record the whole album in one day if we just prepared, knew the songs, and the rhythm parts. Those usually aren't hard to execute. Like, we could do that, and it would also help us write. I think it would help with the writing because it would impose some restrictions, and restrictions can be very helpful in creating, being creative. You have restrictions. We can only do so much. We have to play within our means. We have to make it sound good with what we can do all together. Whereas when you record it piece by piece, you can keep layering, and you can just do things and do transitions and tonal transitions and stuff. You can do all this stuff that sounds cool, but is difficult to do live, or doesn't translate as easily or as well live. So we're trying to write the stuff together, play it together, record it live, and then do overdubs of the tricky stuff. I wouldn't do the vocals live if there were any vocals. I would do those here. And guitar solos, that's another thing that I don't want to be doing on studio time, because I'll record hours, just for a couple days, just play to it a ton, and then from that find the best melodic runs, or just find the best notes out of that, and then usually, so I'll comp together my favorite licks and melodic notes it's kind of like a collage solo, and then from that I'm like, all right, this is the sequence of notes that I feel like is the best, and that I like the best. Then I'll record that sequence of notes and try and do that in more of a continuous take to give it a more, just a jag. I don't know what I'm talking about right now. I do know what I'm talking about, but I don't know how to express it sometimes. Okay. Where was I? Jeez. Yeah, the new album, the new full band album. Yeah, I want to do something short, manageable, recorded mostly live, just spend more time in the pre-production and just the planning, and then go to a studio, bang it out, and then release it and move on to the next one. Because you know how I was talking about creative constipation earlier, just getting backed up with ideas, and you want to keep that stuff flowing. And that's always been my MO, is keeping it flowing, not getting caught up in it's not good enough. That is the biggest obstacle for so many creative people. I feel like it it's really hard for them to accept, to let go of things being the way they are, getting way too nitpicky about it and like being too critical of it to the point where they never are able to finish anything. And, if you're playing the long game, you make so much more progress by just accepting the faults, finishing it, and moving on and applying what you learned to the next thing that you work on, instead of spending all your time trying to perfect this one piece of music or this one anything. And boy, I could talk a lot about that, but that's my pottery teacher in high school really gave me an amazing piece of advice about pottery, but it applied to anything artistic or creative. And I'm sure it's been said in many different ways, but his advice was to, if you want to get good at pottery, don't focus on making one good pot. Focus on making 1,000 pots, and then out of those 1,000, you're gonna have some good ones, and you're gonna be a lot better. So doing music, that was my approach. Just finish the idea, make it a complete idea, and then move on, and be okay with it not being great, and just make a better one the next time. And what I've found is that the ratio of good ones to bad ones gets better and better the more overall output you've produced, at least for me. So now I'm at a point where with certain styles of music and stuff, like I feel pretty confident in being able to make a cool idea most of the time, as opposed to only 1 out of every 10. It'll be 5 out of every 10 or something. But it really is a numbers game. And I've got to keep that mindset, because as I feel like my abilities and skills have like been building, my expectations have also been building, which can be a source of pressure, because I come to expect a certain level of quality, and so I'm more susceptible now to this perfectionist constipation, artistic constipation, than I was when I was younger. And there's a saying that you got to give yourself permission to write a bad song, and that saying is, the same thing as I was talking about before. Like, you just gotta, it's also referred to as the beginner's mind. Like, just be okay with making mistakes. Be okay with something you make not being, great. It's fine. It's totally okay. You get better by doing more, by practicing, not by toiling over one thing. Like, you just have to cycle through ideas. And the more you're in that creative place, the more ideas will come to you, and the more fluent your creativity will be. At least that's the way it's been for me. So it's that way with like writing lyrics. It's really hard. It's a very vulnerable exercise. But the more you do it, and the more you just sit down, like I used to go through kind of these little exercises where I'd be like, all right, I'm just going to write a song. I don't care if it sucks. Like, it doesn't have to be about I'm just going to write a song that flows and rhymes. Like, I'm totally unattached to the result. I'm just going to write it. And that's how I started writing songs. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to write lyrics. Like, I don't care if these suck. And then just being in that creative space, better lyrics started coming to me. And I started to get better at writing them, and they started to become easier to find. And so, like I was saying about the hour of exercise, and like I'm just focusing on showing up to that space, it's exactly the same way with the creative world. You show up and be there in that space, and then things will naturally start to happen if you show up. And but if you're not there, it's not gonna. It happens sometimes where a random idea will pop into my head and it'll work out well, like a really good idea will just pop into my head. Not that frequently though. It's the more I try to think of ideas and the more I explore ideas, the more frequently they appear. Kind of like, yeah, I don't know where I was going to make another something. Okay, yeah, what else do I have? Oh, yeah. My camera's going to die. I gotta plug this in so I can continue. Okay, we're back after plugging the camera in because you can't have the camera die in the middle of a take here. So yeah, about this perfectionism stuff, that's going to be a real challenge with this podcast because my natural inclination is to keep trying things and keep trying to improve them and do them over and over. And, that's how I like to record music. I enjoy like exploring ideas and getting it just right, just the way that I like it. And, I'm not going to do that with this. And it's going to be hard because there's a lot of ideas that I want to express that don't always come out as good as I want them to when I'm just going off the cuff like this. But I don't want it to be like a script, I don't want it to be like I'm reading a speech, because the thing that I enjoy about podcasts a lot, well, the podcasts that I do enjoy, hearing somebody speak candidly really gives me a good sense of who they are, or a much better sense of that. And it makes me feel kind of like I know them a little better. Well, it definitely makes me feel like I know them better. And it makes me feel more connected to them. So, that's what I would want this to be like. If I'm listening to somebody make a speech, yeah, like some of their personality comes through and some of their, who they are comes through. But a lot of times, a lot of that is not there in the same way that it is if you were listening to somebody have a conversation with another person, or somebody kind of just reflecting on their own thoughts. So that's what I'm going to do. And honestly, yeah, I feel like, there may be certain thoughts that I might put into a specific wording that I really feel strongly about, and I might read a little segment or something. But for the most part, I don't want it to be like that. But it is going to be hard because, I don't know if anybody's going to find this interesting. It doesn't really matter that much, I guess. Like, even if I just listen to this in 10 years, and it'll be interesting for me. So I guess, it'll still be worth it. Where was I going? It'll be hard to do the podcast without, I just had the urge to do another take and like try to get it better and more succinct. But the podcast is not all about being succinct. Anyway, I'm probably going to have to tinker with this and explore as I go along. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm just starting this. I'm not going to try and make the perfect content plan before I start doing this, because if I do that, it'll probably be 6 months from now and I probably won't have recorded anything. So I'm just going to start and see where it goes, and not get too caught up in the details, and kind of let the subsequent recording experiences inform the changes that I will or won't make to how I'm doing this. Anyway, I think, let me see what else I have. Yeah, well, hoping to release an album this month. I think with this consistent flow of energy and available time to work, I think that is going to happen. I've already made the album cover, which I'm very happy about, and very, very excited that feel like I've reached another small level of being able to do graphic design stuff, which is important to me. There's a couple of things. I want to become very proficient at graphic designing, because that would be such a valuable skill. So I'm focusing on that, in addition to the music, graphic designing. Really want to get good at that. And another thing, probably this will have to be later, maybe not later in life, I don't know. I really want to become proficient at electronics, because being able to build and service electronics, like my keyboards, my tube amplifiers, would be really helpful. I don't know what else. Those two would be the most helpful skills right now. Video skills too. And I used to do a lot of video in high school. That's initially what I imagined I would be doing for the rest of my life, is video work. And I still do some video, but it's mostly just utility stuff, like just syncing up video to audio. I'm not really doing anything too creative with it. But that window, I could imagine that window opening up at any point. I really enjoyed doing it, and I know when you get really deep into a video project and you kind of get into a project, it's really, really fun. And I've had some of the funnest times making stupid videos with my friends, and just some of the hardest laughter and really joyous times, just uncontrollable, gut-wrenching laughing. It was really fun. I could see myself getting into that again at some point. Music and video go together hand in hand, and that would obviously be a very good skill to have sharpened. So, here's the this month of executing these daily 7 criteria. A lot of it, it's about establishing momentum. Momentum's very, very important, and it's very, evident momentum in either direction. That's why I really was tired of the yo-yo life, because on the weekends you're establishing momentum in a bad direction. In the week you're establishing momentum in a good direction, and it's just this back and forth fighting between these two forces. So far, this is the first weekend that I've just kept my routine steady through the weekend and didn't alter it at all. And so there's been no change in my energy or available time from the weekend and the week, and it's been great. I understand that I'm in a bit of a unique situation because I work from home, but still, that doesn't change the fact that the weekend, feeling the same on the weekend as I do during the week has been really nice. Just a constant flow. Constant, consistent energy. That's what I'm after, because energy, it's the most valuable resource we have other than time. So, momentum. Trying to get some momentum going in the right direction. And so far, I feel a lot of momentum. And the consistency has been great. Consistency seems to be the key to life. I wrote a song called A Little Every Day off the album Bounce in 2017. Little every day, little things add up. And we're talking about the compound effect of all this McDonald's chicken nuggets, Beyond Meat chicken nuggets. We got some meatless meatballs. I want to make some chili tonight with some of the. It's a meatless meatball, and I'm gonna put diced tomatoes, and I'm gonna put 3 different kinds of beans, and I'm gonna crumble up these meatless meatballs, and I'm gonna put some jalapenos, and who knows, I might put some red lentils in there. I might put some potatoes. I'm definitely gonna put some onions in there, garlic. I don't even know what I'm gonna put in there yet, but it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good, and it's gonna be dense. It's gonna be really dense, because I'll tell you what. On Tuesday, I weighed myself, and I was 149 pounds. And that's pretty light for me. That's because over the last 6 months, I haven't been exercising or eating consistently. I've been traveling a lot, going to festivals, not living a very healthy life. And for me, if I'm living an unhealthy life, I'm getting lighter. So 149, that's pretty light. That's about 10 pounds lighter than what I am when I'm, doing everything right in my mind, eating well and exercising regularly, closer to 160. And then I weighed so I ate a ton this week. I feel like I ate a ton, and, worked out every day, and I weighed myself on Friday, and I was 147. I'd lost 2 pounds. So that was interesting, but like I said, not really focused on numbers this time around, because if I focus on numbers, I'm like, I want to be this arbitrary number of weight, or I want to be able to lift this arbitrary number of pounds, or I want to be able to run this arbitrary number of miles in an hour, or, something like that. It makes the process less enjoyable for me, because then the expectation, I'm always measuring against it, and if I'm not hitting it, or if I have an off day, it's discouraging. So instead, I'm trying to relish in the act itself. Anyway, I've already talked about this. Well, I guess I'll give one more little thing about the exercise thing, and how not specific I am with it. So I was really sore. Yesterday I had pushed my exercise off. I was doing it in the morning, but on that day I pushed it off till later so I could do other stuff in the morning. And it worked out well, because I was able to finish the album cover that I was working on. But yeah, it was starting to get late. I was driving through Wexford, where I went to high school, and I was like, man, I gotta get an hour of exercise in. I'm not gonna, the gym, Ascend, or the climbing gym, they're gonna be closed when I get back to Southside, where I live. So I happen to be passing my high school, and I know they have a bunch of fields and awesome places to run around there. So I pulled in there. I went to one of their alternate practice fields. I think it was their lacrosse field, practice field or something. There were a bunch of lacrosse nets set up, and I just did running. I was like, all right, I'll just run around for an hour and do different kinds of running movements. And it was great, but I started out way too hard, and I ran some 100-yard sprints, not really sprints, 75%. Ran some random running movements that you do, if you ever played sports, warm up, different kinds of running, karaoke and backpedaling and skipping and all that stuff. It was great, but I got real tired out real fast, and then I looked at my watch, and it had been 10 minutes. I'm like, oh, what am I going to do for an hour? I'm pretty whipped. So I just kept lightening up the running, did some stretching, And then eventually I was like, man, I just want to go home. I feel like I worked out really hard. It hasn't been an hour yet though. So what I did was I just walked around for like the last 20 minutes, and I listened to a podcast and just walked. I'm like, all right, this is okay. I'm doing something active. I'm filling up this hour. And yeah, so I was happy about that. I'm happy I didn't just go home and, I'm not sure the walking really did much, but it's the practice. It's the system that I'm trying to establish here. So, is that everything I got to say today? I think it is. I think now I'd just be wasting your time and my time by dribbling on. So, yeah, I'll catch up in another week with more progress on how things are going. But so far, great success, feeling great, feeling very productive, feeling excited. I'm very excited about every day.